de babão.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino.
Holy moly de babão.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino.
Good afternoon. We run it back on the Kings court for the second day in a row. How we doing, everybody? What's going on? Let me know where you're watching from. What's happening? No shortage of content in the sports world to talk about. Athena, I'm zipping it. Y'all can go do your own research on some of that news. Athena, look, I respect you, okay? Not going to go there. There'll be more down the road. So hope everybody, as I said, is doing well. Ryan in Sacktown with you. This is our daily meeting. Court's in session. Get in here. If you want to be a part of the show, you can call using the link that is on the screen. I'll put it in the chat as well for you. You can also get into the chat. We will take those as well. Dallas, Texas in the house. I like it. Can acknowledge that.
Acknowledge me.
Good job. Speaking of wrestling,
Woo!
Nate has made his way to the news. We will get to that in a little bit. This is one of my one of the days I look forward to a little bit more throughout the year with publications and what they come out with. And the Athletic has come out with their anonymous player poll for the season. And take into account, it doesn't really mean a lot. They don't pull a huge sample of the players. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 or 40, but I have not read it. We're going to go over it together today. So looking forward to that. Also, as I titled the show, you know, there is an uncomfortable key to this offseason. And there was a question going back to, it was the press conference with Scott Perry. And by the way, I went back, I watched yesterday's show, and I realized I was like shaking the table and the camera's there. I'm going to do my best not to do that. I don't want to make anybody dizzy. But Scott Perry, during his press conference after the trade deadline, I asked him a question. I knew where I thought the answer would go, but then it also went somewhere that I didn't think it was going to go. And I think it lends a little bit of I don't want to say a pathway to his thinking, but maybe a little bit of a walkway into what he's envisioning for the Sacramento Kings. And you've seen the players he's brought in. You know what the Kings had before that. It's not, in fact, it is the norm for GMs to come in and want to put their own stamp on a roster. But before we get to that, I want to congratulate ex-GM of the Stockton Kings, Gabriel Harris. He is moving on to be the general manager of the Memphis Tigers. How about that? The Memphis Tigers. He's going back to college. Yes, colleges now have general managers. So congrats to Gabe. Did an excellent job in Stockton, led them to 2 three straight Western Conference Finals appearances, I believe, well, at least 3 straight playoffs, 2 G League Finals, 1 championship, all with 3 different coaches. And in that period, 3 unsigned free agents that ended up getting full-time deals with the Kings and made some impact. So, Gabe, great person, great GM. Good luck. Moving on. So we've got the playoffs from last night. I think some of you have mistaken what LeBron James had to say. I've got my take on it. And then we are also going to debut a new segment. It's called Hot Fakes. Hot Fakes. It's a play on takes that, they might be funny. They might be ridiculous. So we've got a few of those as well. So I've got a lot planned for the show. You can take the show any direction you want to go. So if you want to call, if there's something else you want to talk about, we'll get into it. Don't forget, Grant is back tonight, 7 p.m. If you're just tuning into the channel, you're like, why are they doing a show on If You Don't Like That? We're no longer with our previous employer, so we're rocking it here. You're going to get 3 p.m. content Monday through Friday right here on the Kings Court. Grant, 7 o'clock Monday through Friday. And then this weekend, and as news happens, we will come on and do shows to cover that for you. We want to make sure that we kind of are that place. When De'Aaron Fox got traded, we were ahead of it. We were here. We had a huge group of you that came out and watched that. When things happen with the Kings, we come on. So, and if you're new to the Kings Court, by the way, this is not Grant's show. This is my show. And it's not going to be the same format as Grant. You're going to see a little bit more sarcasm. You're going to see this community that's got inside jokes. Welcome. Join it. We want to grow the community. We also have some really cool things that go on throughout the springtime and the summer, like having Jerry Reynolds on once a week. He's going to continue doing that with us. We're going to decide on a day of the week for Jerry. And we're also going to give away, if you remember the original Kings Court banner, we're going to give that away. And Jerry's going to sign that for one of you. So stay tuned on how you can, and if you want that thing, probably everybody's like, we don't want that. Like, why are you trying to give us your old junk? I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm hopeful well, I guess the Jerry Reynolds signature makes it not technically junk. I don't know. You can make that call. Let's check in with you all before we get into what's going on. Again, happy you're here. Ryan in Sacktown with you. We go till about 4:35 o'clock. We've got sponsors. We've got great sponsors on this channel. In fact, if you are looking to become a sponsor, whether it be here on the Kings Court, Grant's show, you want to be a sponsor. If you don't like that, we are happy to put you in touch with some of our other sponsors and let you know what it has done for them. There's a lot of eyeballs that come on this channel, and it's not just YouTube and X. This audio gets uploaded to all of our podcast platforms, so it goes out that way as well. So if you're interested in that, hit me up on X. You can hit Grant up on X. You can email us as well, gnapier@gmail.com. If you want to shoot him an email, you can also shoot me an email, rhinoinsacktown@gmail.com. I've got my prize picks, by the way, for you here in a little bit as well. So want to get back to all of you in the chat. Tristan. Okay, so we're going to mix up the days. I think write-offs were Monday. Grievances were Tuesday. I don't know what we were doing Wednesday, but Wednesday is going to be hot fakes. Thursday up for grabs. Maybe that's where we do the Immaculate Grid. That was a hit the last time we did the show. And Fridays, I don't know. I'm trying to get a hold of Adam's agent. If any of you can get a hold of Adam, let me know. Maybe there's some room for a wrestling segment. I'm not sure if we have enough in the budget right now. What's up, Patrick?
Acknowledge me.
How you doing, brother? Glad you are here. Patrick on the East Coast. How did Grant just drop this like a hot potato? Athena, it wasn't our decision, quite frankly, and that's the business. It's cutthroat, and we've gone over it over the last couple days. The radio industry, whatever you want to call it, it's a dying breed. You have to be doing so many other things better than the competition, or at least as good as the competition, than just radio. There's a lot to it, and I don't think I need to explain anymore. You've got satellite. I mean, these platforms where you can just jump on demand. You can be a part of the show just by your keyboard. If you're working at work, you know what I get. You know what I'm saying? Hello, I am here. Can I say that the Giants stink? Yes, you can.
Acknowledge me.
Love Preston. Preston's one of those volunteers.
Alrighty then.
He is not a. He is not a
And
host.
both of these guys,
both of these guys are volunteers.
No
that's for
doubt.
sure.
No. So I'm glad you asked that question. No, it is not all Kings talk. We talk NBA. We talk a ton of stuff. In fact, some stuff that Grant does not. So it's just called the Kings Court, but it is all sports. So we have some fun here. You'll see that. No, it's definitely not all Kings talk. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I don't think I have that one. I can do the manual one for you. J Cal, what's up, dude? How you doing? Hope you're having a good day.
Acknowledge me.
It's good to be back. Cool. My man Casey, what's up, dude? They can talk all the trash they want. Who's that look stupid on? So there you go. All right, let's hop into it. As you know, draft lottery coming up. We are 4 days away from the NBA draft lottery, which is kind of funny because I asked this question yesterday. In my gut, I really feel like the Kings are going to end up with the number 4 pick. I have nothing to back that up. There's nothing that I can point to. It just feels like 4 is going to be the spot for the Kings. So there's your popcorn and draft balls as we go along. But 4 days out from the draft, here is what every team is looking at when we get to the draft. That is picks by team. The Blazers do not have any, and if they did, they would probably sell them with the new owner, to be honest with you. The Kings right now projected based off of the coin flip 5. That's what their odds are. And their odds are not different than number 4 to get the first pick, but they do have a better probability of falling back beyond the 8th pick. So note that the Kings 2 picks in the second round. Scott Perry hit a home run with Max Reynaud. No doubt about that. One of the great things about Max that I saw was just, and we've talked about it on the channel, his ability to still put on weight during the season. That's not something you usually see, definitely from a rookie. So that is what every team has. So like if you look at the West, the Lakers, they've only got a first round pick. Houston, they're only picking in the second round. I'm looking more at the back end team. So the Blazers not having a good pick, or not having a pick at all. Good. Okay, that works. But look at the Spurs. The Spurs and the Thunder. It's an arms race. It's really what it is. So thanks. Oh, you guys are just talking to yourself. I like it. What's up, Carl? How you doing today?
Acknowledge me.
Cool. So you're doing this. My tankathon mock draft just gave us the 8th pick. Could be. Very well could be. Eric Pashaw was a home run too. Okay, you got a home run. 1320, 1140, and now 890 trash. Look, I'm not going to trash my previous employer. I'm not going to trash either station because I have friends that work with those stations and people, not all, but people that I respect at those stations. So anyways, let's keep it rolling. As I said, the anonymous player poll. I'm excited to dig into this. I have not read it. Usually I look at it ahead of time. So we'll do it together here in just a few minutes. You got your NBA playoffs scheduled tonight. The Lakers got bumped last night. The Lakers did not look good. We'll get to LeBron's soundbite in a second. SGA, very interesting what he said after the game last night after only scoring 18 points, but the Lakers were running a ton of people at him. He said it was easy. Just got to find the open people. So take that for what you will. Tonight, you've got 2 matchups, the Spurs and the Wolves back in action. And then you've got the Lakers and the Sixers. Very interesting in this one. Joel Embiid out for the Sixers. How do you feel about that? That is rough. And you know what's rougher when I think about Joel Embiid? Look at this. First off, I'm going to say I think player options are going to start being fewer and further in between. It's kind of going to be like the no trade clause because look at what is still owed to Joel Embiid. 62 million next year. 67.2 player option. We were talking about Zach LaVine's option yesterday. 67, and that's a year. It's a season from now. Season and playoffs in a season from now. You think Joel Embiid's going to opt into that contract? I mean, maybe he'll be able to stay healthy. I doubt it. He hasn't been able to really stay healthy. But let's get to last night's game. I will give you a rundown of the scores. But LeBron was asked last night about what's going on with the offense. Why is the offense not really clicking per se? And I thought it was really interesting. Let me bring up my screen share for you. I had to reset it because we uploaded a video. You don't care about that. I'm doing the haunted horse thing. So here are your scores from last night. But LeBron was asked, and we'll get into it with the hot fakes about Luka, but he was asked, what's up with the offense? What's going on? And I thought it was a pretty benign answer. Some of you took it differently.
Right now, obviously, that's a great defense.
Issues coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a guy that averaged 37 a game. What did he average, 35 this year? 33 and a half?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you asking?
Okay, well, I'm asking, I mean, like, you guys.
There's the issues right there. We're playing against the number one defensive team in the NBA. As far as the ratings and everything. And when you play against great defense, you have to have guys that can attract multiple defenders on the floor at all time. Even I felt like we had great shots. We got some great shots tonight. We missed them. But when you play against the world champions, having a guy that averages 34, 6 and 8 and 8 and 9, whatever the hell, that's special. So we have to be better at finding ways to get to the blender, finding ways to get to the paint. We know they're a paint swarming team, so we have to be better with, getting to the paint, not turn the ball over, and then shooting with confidence. But I feel like we got some really good looks. But shit.
I think it's incredible what he's in. I'm not a massive LeBron guy. I don't have an issue with him. My biggest issue with LeBron James lies with the approach, because he has been the leader of this league for how many years now? So his approach to things like the All-Star game, I'm not a massive fan of that. I think everybody kind of follows behind him, but I'm not going to open up that can of worms. But he's done this playoffs something that still blows me away at his age. He's been impactful. There hasn't been much around him. Yeah, he gets Austin Reeves back, but you still don't have Luka. I mean, there was a play last night where he stole the ball away from 4, I believe, at least 3 Thunder defenders and put it back in. I mean, you got to compliment and give the guy some respect for what he is doing at this point of his career. And I'll say this too. I know he only played a few minutes, but we talk about the importance of player development. If James Jr. was not on the back of Bronny's uniform, you would be giving the Lakers some love for how they've developed him, at least developed him enough to be on the court. And, he's quick. He's able to do a few things. Shot still isn't quite there. Ball handling definitely is not still there. But he wasn't supposed to be an NBAer. In fact, when he was drafted, he was not an NBA player by skill. So I give them credit, but the Lakers have no chance in this series. The Thunder have not lost a game in the playoffs yet. I don't see that changing. Maybe it's a gentleman's sweep. Just maybe it will be. Lakers might get one at home, but the Thunder can just turn it on so quick. And the one thing about them turning it on is they don't look back when they turn it on. And you saw that in the fourth quarter last night against the Lakers. Luka does not appear to be anywhere close to returning, which again, our boy Nate, Ric Flair going after Luka, going after the Lakers. We'll get to you, Rick, in hot fakes. But yeah, I just don't see it. But LeBron, whether he's going to keep playing, whether he's not going to play, whether he's going to go to a different team, I don't care about any of that. I usually shut that noise off. I know he's not coming to Sacramento, and I don't want him in Sacramento, to be quite honest with you. But what he's doing right now, simply incredible. I do have to give him his flowers for that. So if you're into the games tonight, let me know which way you're thinking. I think the New York game tonight is going to have a lot more ebbs and flows. I think you're going to see, in fact, I'll just say it. I think it's going to be a game of runs tonight. The floor is going to open up a little bit more because you don't have Embiid, which will, and this is going to be, and Mike Brown's made some good adjustments in this series, but it's going to probably make Mike Brown make the decision whether he is going to play to what the Sixers are doing, which is going to be probably a smaller lineup, or if he's going to try to go big and make the Sixers deal with it. I think he's going to probably play a little bit more to the small ball, but the guy that you need to circle tonight for the Knicks, and to me, if you had to look at Mike Brown's time in New York and the biggest mishandling, I don't want to call it a mistake. I think the biggest improvement that did not get made is how Karl Anthony Towns is used. It's kind of funny, and I know Cat's not a super physical guy, but leading into this series, he was getting like at most 11 or 12 shots. In the month of April, I think the most shots he got was 12. And Brunson's your stud, he's your star, but you gotta use Cat in some other way than you have. So tonight, I'm circling Cat. I think Cat is the one that's going to be the X factor in this one, especially without Embiid on the floor. Let me know which way you're going on that. If Bronny stuck around in college a couple more years, might have been a legit second round undrafted, possibly. Look, everything that happened with Bronny, and we talked about it when he was going to get drafted, when he did get drafted, I kind of feel bad for the kid. He didn't have a decision. He didn't have a choice. His dad was making the decisions, and then you're carrying the weight of the last name, right? Bronny didn't force the Lakers to draft him with a draft pick. That's dad and Rich Paul. Remember Rich Paul telling other teams, don't draft Bronny? So I think he's handled it very well. If you watch what he's done in the G League, it's nothing that's going to blow you away. But if you look at the fundamentals of his game, because he's not his dad, he's not going to be that guy, but he can be a guy possibly that is serviceable, that can give you 6 to 11 minutes on a decent team. Maybe, think about I would say the Davion Mitchell minutes when he was here in Sacramento. Not quite the same defender, but Bronny is he's got a good basketball IQ. So I wish we had Adam Levine sold out attendance every game. Isn't he from this area? Right? Isn't Adam Levine from this area? Hey, Rhino, do you think the Kings keep Adam Levine? I don't think the Kings have ever had Adam Levine, to be quite honest with you. But Zach LaVine, I don't know how they're going to get off of him. And Zach talked about it yesterday again. His number on the open market, I don't think is anywhere near what his player option is. And we're going to listen to a little bit more from Bobby Marks when it comes to the way he's looking at the Kings offseason. We also have a graphic that we will put up that really illustrates where the Kings are at and what they have. Not much. I mean, you've got those 3 draft picks, and if you want to be fair about it, if you are a Scott Perry critic, you can't criticize his drafts. Did well in the draft. I think a lot of people forget that the Kings did not have a first-round pick going into the draft last year, or draft night. And then certainly you look at Max Reynaud. If the draft was held all over again, Max Reynaud would easily be in my opinion, a top 10 pick. So, Adam Levine. So we're still going with this. Hey, I said take the show anywhere you want. Adam Levine is from Rio Linda. So apparently, I can't confirm it. I'm going off of the words of my wife. Adam Levine dated one of her coworkers at some point. That's the story that I heard before they hit it big. Maroon 5, are they still rocking out? Are they still making music? Looking at OG too as a factor. Yeah, no doubt. And then what about Mitchell Robinson, who I will bring up later in the show as well? That's kind of the decision, right? Because the Knicks are going to do their best to do the Hacker Robinson. And I think you have something brewing here in Sacramento. I thought one of really going back to this past season, I thought one of the better matchups or the more memorable matchups from this past season was Dylan Cardwell and Mitchell Robinson. I had a lot of fun watching that in person. Those two, in some ways, Dylan gave it to him in the first quarter, and then he got it back in the second quarter, and then it was about an even battle. And Mitchell Robinson is easily the best offensive rebounder in the NBA, and he's just that hustle guy. And as we start to talk in a little bit about the Kings, that's one thing that consistency that I've noticed with the really good teams, or even just the teams in the playoffs still right now, is they all have that defensive anchor on the back end. Doesn't mean that they're a starter, but they're somewhere on the team and they show up when it matters. And the Kings haven't had that. And the way I define a defensive anchor is somebody that can protect the rim, somebody that allows your guards to be more aggressive, knowing that they're protected on the backside. And Jared Allen is an excellent example of that. Certainly Mitchell Robinson is a great example of that. Rudy Gobert has been an example of that in these playoffs. I'm not going to put DeAndre Ayton in that category, but you can put Chet Holmgren certainly at the top of the category, Victor Wembanyama. So do the Kings have that guy? I think they might. And like I said, we'll get into that a little bit more as the show goes along. So we talked about the games that are tonight. Let me give you the good stuff about tonight. If you get down, Prize Picks, use the promo code Rhino50, RYNO50. It is really, really, like, for me, the best avenue. I think it's the most fun when it comes to the stat prediction market. Go check them out. $50 of free play when you play your first $5 lineup. I've got my picks for tonight up there. And if you've been tailing me and following me on Prize Picks, it's no BS. We have had a lot of success, knock on wood. So in the Spurs game, I am going to go, or excuse me, in the Knicks game, I'm going Jalen Brunson more than 1.5 made threes. I am also going Tyrese Maxey more than 1.5 made threes. As for the second game, the Spurs and the T-Wolves, I am going to go Jaden McDaniels more than 9.5 points. Steph Castle more than half of a three-pointer. So you just got to make a three. And then I am going to go with Julian Champagny, more than 1.5 made threes. Let's go. I think that's going to get it done tonight. So if you want to play along with me, you choose 2 to 6 players, pick more or less on their stat predictions, and let them go to work for you. Check it out. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. It is indeed. So is anybody getting down tonight on Prize Picks? Sure is poor defense, weak rebounding, starting lineup. You know, it's funny because looking back to training camp 2 years ago, Coach Brown was so big on the crash zones, and that kind of changed. And I know Doug was dealing with injuries, But that changed. In fact, you know what? I do want to play this. This was from the press conference where Doug, it was the exit interview press conference where we got to talk to Doug and Scott Perry. And speaking of Doug, as we transition to a little bit of Kings talk, and then we'll get to the Athletic and their player poll. I asked Doug, just like the young guys this season, did he have an accelerating learning curve? Did he go through more than a first-year coach normally goes through in that chair, which obviously he did, but with that, what do you take from it? Is there any positives that you can roll that into? This is what Doug had to say.
Good question. As an athlete, you grow up and to like on the outside looking in, this is like, whoa. And this is a lot, but you kind of made for it or you're not. You keep fighting, you come with the right mentality, or that starts to break down and you see that. Me in this position, I try to come with the right disposition, the right mindset, clean it, rinse it, let's go again. The learning inside of that is probably the biggest gift, and that's sit back and look. And luckily, I have two incredible mentors and leaders that help me because they see the game differently in Scott and BJ than a lot of people. So it's easy for me to lean on them. Sometimes they probably be like, damn, man. But I lean on them because I know that when you talk about knowledge and battles and fighting and where they come from, like that for me is an invaluable piece of growth that I just dive into. So, this job is one of the biggest hurdles that I've ever faced, but I truly enjoy it, and I think I must enjoy pain a little bit because it's a lot of fun, man. I really have fun doing my job, and I know that what's on the other side of what we experienced is the gratification in going through what we go through. Yeah.
So that was Doug. Exit interviews. Thought it was a good answer, and he was retained largely. Scott Perry mentioned his work ethic and what he was able to do with the young guys. And I guess I'm curious to ask you. I posed this question yesterday. It's this: if the Kings go back and start playing a vet-heavy lineup and they're not having success, what's your tolerance going to be for the team? What's your tolerance going to be with the coach? I think a lot of the fan base was good with Doug coming back. In fact, I disagreed with Grant. I was good with Doug coming back based off of what he was doing with the young guys, because I'm not looking at this as a win year or a win now year, which is another thing we'll talk about with the Kings situation later in the show. I'm looking at it as a building year. So to me, that is, again, and you've got to mix it with the right combination of vets that end up on this team. But that is what I kind of have as an expectation going forward, closer to what you saw towards the end of the season rather than the later of the season or latter of the season. And that's what's going to be tough when you look at who's coming back. And certainly we haven't been through free agency. We've not been through the draft. So a lot can change, but one thing doesn't. As we sit today, the Kings do not have a ton of wiggle room when it comes to financial stability. EMG, what's up? Late to the party. Again, glad YouTube has a rewind. Just got out of it. You know what? Hope the surgery went well. I do. Glad it was minor. Glad you're out of it.
Acknowledge me.
Don't walk on a numb toe, probably, or at least a numb foot. Adam Levine is probably a better defender than Zach LaVine. Zach's never been a good defender. You knew that coming into it. I actually thought, now his defense was, if you graded his defense, it's not good. But if you graded his effort, it was better than in the past. So take that for what you will. Adam Levine makes better decisions. Here we go. We're getting King's Cordy already. Did Adam Levine play in any NBA All-Star celebrity game? I don't know, Peter. Look it up and let us know. Like the soccer strategy for salary cap, where you can only make trades and get players in the offseason if you generate profit. That is, I've never seen that applied to the NBA. I've never thought about that applied to the NBA. That would be a tough ask, especially if you're in Portland. How's Keon Ellis doing in the playoffs? He's not playing a lot, Blue Magic, and I'm not surprised. You might see him in spurts depending on the matchups because the playoffs are so heavily predicated on matchups. But I think Dennis Schroeder, and I said it yesterday, has gotten the nod because of two things: his playmaking and his ball handling. I think those are mainly why Schroeder has gotten those minutes. Keon's ball handling, the playoffs has been all about pressure, not a lot of fouls being called. So he was playing a lot, though, during the regular season. He was playing very well, actually. Ideas to make a larger market and small market teams more competitive. If you go into the luxury tax, you can't sign or trade any player the following season. Kings are in the luxury tax right now, which is something they have not paid, I believe, since 2004, 2005. Scott Perry made it clear they are not going to be, he does not believe going into the luxury tax, especially with a team that is not ready to win now. What's up, Vacaville Richie? How you doing? Acknowledge you.
Acknowledge me.
Big Dog. Big Dog. Can't talk. Big Dog. What's looking good on these games tonight? I love having this show back. Telly, I hit it 5 minutes ago, man. Go look at my Price Picks page. I know you're on there. If you want the first game, it's Brunson more than 1.5 threes. Maxey more than 1.5 threes. Brian, how you doing? We just heard you guys are not on radio. Very sad to hear. Hope to see you guys back in some form of a show in the near future. Well, you got us right here in these shows. Grant, 7 p.m., me, 3 p.m. on the King's Court. So, as I said, I love the anonymous player poll. I have not read it yet. Let's see what it says. Sam Amick was a contributor on this poll. Last year, if you remember, Tyrese Halliburton was the player that was voted as the most overrated. So who's it going to be this year? Let's look. Most underrated player, I guess we'll start there. Jalen Johnson, top of the list, actually tied with Derek White. I don't disagree with Derek White. I don't think Jaylen Brown's underrated. Drew Holiday, Peyton Pritchard, maybe. Austin Reeves, maybe. Nickeil Alexander Walker. That is one that I agree with for sure. Scotty Barnes, yeah, because they don't get a lot of national TV. Cade Cunningham. Now let's look down. Do we have any Kings on this list? I don't see any. Do you? Ends with Jalen Williams. That's not a bad one. Okay. Bam Adebayo. No, I don't agree with that. All right. So players believe the Boston Celtics' Derek White has not received his due respect. I agree with that. He has done a lot, and he was on Team USA, which does not mean anything to the NBA, but it tells you when you put together a group of stars, which is what they do basically with Team USA, they looked at him as just that distributor, that defender, that ball handler. So I agree, underrated. Most overrated player, and we'll see what the players had to say. Alperen Şengün. Interesting. Very interesting. Rudy Gobert. Second, I think Trae Young should be at the top of that list, personally. Cat. See, Catmate. Carl Anthony Towns, we just said that. John Morant. Looking for reaction. Alperen Şengün earned his second All-Star nod this season, but he's most overrated. Interesting. Let's see what they had to say. The most overrated section of our annual player poll has emerged as the most controversial. No doubt about it. Okay, so here's some quotes. It should be noted, however, that this question was once again one that players were least willing to answer. So there was 81 votes cast for this. So Şengün only received 10 of 81 votes. Here's the quotations from two players. First one, quote, I was part of the group that said Tyrese Halliburton for most overrated, and what he did in the playoffs last year was unreal. End quote. Here's another quote. So I'm not saying who I think is overrated. We have a lot of really good players in this league, end quote. So the players looking out for the players. Another player who was asked the question but declined to answer said, that's one I would not put my name on. I don't want to crush my guys silently. I ain't that type of guy. Who do you think that player is? I know who that player is, or at least I think I know who that player is. Anybody? That's got to be Mr. Burner. That's got to be Kevin Durant, right? That sounds like something Kevin Durant would say. Let me read that one more time. Quote, that's one I wouldn't put my name on. I don't want to crush my guy silently. I ain't that type of guy. Isn't that so perfect for Kevin Durant? It's gotta be. There's no way around it. All right, let's move on to the next section. And we'll get some quotes from the players on this one. Our next section is, which current coach, aside from your own, do you find the most impressive? Joe Mazzulla. All right. Fair enough. Mark Diagno. All right. JB Bickerstaff. Eric Spoelstra. Jordan Ott. I think Mitch Johnson. It's you know what? That's a fair place for Mitch Johnson. JJ Redick, maybe a little low. He's done a really great job. David Adelman made the list. And Ime Udoka. Mike Brown on the list as well. Kenny Atkinson. Interesting. So, you know what is so funny? I just played it yesterday. Kenny Atkinson, or I posted it on X. The Kings played their first, or excuse me, the Cavaliers played their first game against the Kings in Sacramento with James Harden. So that was the first game James Harden was suiting up, and I was in Kenny Atkinson's pregame press conference. And just his command of the room, what he had to say, I thought that was really, really good. It was different how he approached, and he talked about also Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder, but I thought it struck me. So surprised he's a little low. Look at that. Mike Brown and Jordy Fernandez, both coaches here in Sacramento, one head, one assistant head coach, both get 1.4% and both own the state of New York when it comes to coaching. Why does Rudy Gobert catch so much heat? Because he's dirty, Daniel. That's why he catches so much heat. Understood. Scotty Barnes, Derek White. If you could, though, we'll see. Ryan, can you go to 6? I need to listen to that. It's interesting. I can't, man. I'm sorry. 3 o'clock, but it lives on YouTube and will be shot out to our podcast platforms. Also, Old School Radio is dead, Ryan. I think you and Grant will have way more success with streaming and all the available platforms. This is the new media. Radio is fading away. Y'all got this. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much, 01 Bam Jr. We've been doing this before we were on the radio. This is where we were doing it. So we've been doing it a minute. Radio was just something on top of what we were doing here. Now, the King's Court did go away for a little bit because it was long hours at the radio station, but definitely worth it for the experience. I'm better for it. So I guess we can't vote for Doug. The players didn't. Sabonis is overrated. Stick around, Icebox. We're going to talk about it. So for this section, one player said, quote, he has a great rapport with his players, gets on them. They take on his personality, which is tough-nosed. He's a great head coach. That was a quote relating to the guy at the top of the list, Joe Mazzulla, voted as a, let's see, besides your own coach, who you find most impressive. All right, next category. And these are going to usually get a little more controversial as we go. Which current coach, aside from your own, do you find the least impressive? All right, Doug Christie's not on top of the list. How about that? I guarantee you before we started doing this, a lot of people, if I asked that question, it would have been, you would have said Doug Christie, not at the top of the list. Brian Keefe is at the top of the list. He is the head coach for the Washington Wizards. How about that? That is interesting. Doc Rivers has more votes from the players than Doug Christie. How about Steve Kerr? Only 4% behind Doug Christie for least impressive. Mike Brown, 4%. So again, small poll of players. I'm sure the players do not like answering this stuff, but they're doing it. 81 players. 100 votes cats in this one, excuse me. Wow. Okay, so let's run these down. Brian Keefe, Doc Rivers, Doug Christie, Steve Kerr, Billy Donovan, no longer in the NBA, Nick Nurse, Mike Brown, Rick Carlisle. That one surprises me. Rick Carlisle? Are you kidding me? Will Hardy? All right. Tyronn Lue, Joe Mazzulla got a vote as well. So let's get to some quotes here. Brian Keefe is the Washington Wizards coach, and his team finished the season with the league's worst record, 17-65, with 26 of their losses in 26 of their last 27 games. Quote, I don't even know who's coaching the Wizards, but whoever coaches the Wizards, one correspondent said, or one respondent, excuse me, brutal. Here's a quote about Steve Kerr. I think he's a great coach. One of those players who voted for Kerr. I just thought the way he handled the Kuminga situation wasn't very smart. So there you go. That's what can sway stuff. That is what can sway these votes. And that's why it's kind of fun to look at these, because you do get some context. But there's your story. Doug Christie not at the top, and Steve Kerr only 4% behind. The one I disagree with 100% is Rick Carlisle, but I'm not a player. Now am I? All right, next category, and then we'll get to the Kings here in a little bit. We've got our hot fakes as well. Not even close, right? Victor Wembanyama, no doubt. He's going to have that award on lock for a really long time if he can stay healthy. Look at that! Anybody notice it? We've got a volunteer.
Alrighty then.
There's a volunteer on the list, or at least an ex-volunteer.
And both of these guys are volunteers. No doubt.
Anybody spot it? Keon Ellis got a vote. How about that? Doug's first year in the league, brutal. We'll talk about it in a second. Gobert 4 times the Stifle Tower. Oh my gosh. Don't even. Keon Ellis got a vote. All right. Good for Keon. There you go. Here's a quote about Wemby. He's 7'6". He just has the ability to cover up so many mistakes, including ones that he'll make. Just his ability to erase mistakes is extremely impressive, where guys drive in the paint and see him and turn around and dribble out. Like, no one does that in the NBA. Quote, but you'll drive in and you've kind of got a layup and you see him and you turn around and go the other way. That's crazy. You know what the ending is if you do it. You can't knock that. There you go. How about that? So there's your poll for this year. Doug Christie, not at the top. I appreciate that. Keon Ellis got a vote for best defender. Very interesting. Alrighty, we'll roll with it as we move along on the show. How about that? I didn't expect to see Keon Ellis's name on there. Maybe a King threw some in. Kings just don't know how, or Kings just know how to mismanage their organization. I think there's no argument. We got nothing for Keon, right? Or are we high on D Hunter? Great question. Here's where I come out on that based on what I was around and what I observed, who I talked to. You mismanaged Keon Ellis. You didn't start mismanaging Keon Ellis under Doug Christie, though. That started under Mike Brown. So I don't know where that relationship stood with the Kings and Keon Ellis going into last summer. I have no idea. But I do know he was eligible for an extension rather than picking up his option. Scott Perry decided not to extend him. He just picked up the option. So when I look at the trade, I'm fairly confident in saying that the Kings thought that they could get a first-round pick for Keon Ellis, which is why they sat Malik Monk down randomly when everybody's like, why is Malik not playing? I think the Kings were heavily trying to drum up interest and had been talking to teams. And I don't know what the reaction was. Maybe the reaction was good and they decided to run Keon out there. Maybe the reaction was bad, so they ran Keon out there and gave him the run instead of Malik. What I do know is they were not able to get that first round pick. It wasn't there for him. So are you going to trade Keon by himself for a second round pick? Probably not. Now, as the trade goes, Keon is okay. Look at it this way. The Cavaliers decided to stretch. They felt stretching the money because DeAndre Hunter, his contract expires at the end of this season. Dennis Schroeder's is going to go through the end of 27-28. So because they got Keon Ellis back, they took Dennis Schroeder at that payroll. That would be my guess. And Keon was the reason they took him. Now, on the flip side of that, Scott Perry was able, and I think I gave him compliments for this yesterday on the show, to say you're targeting a number, like this is your guy that you are targeting in free agency and Dennis Schroeder, and to have it really blow up in your face. I wasn't a fan of it when he did it. I didn't think the money was right when he got signed. And, I could have lived with the money personally, but it was the type of player that Dennis is. Dennis is closer to a Russ in his approach offensively. He can distribute, but he can score too. And he's not one of those guys. I think the really special point guards are the point guards that can distribute and score, but they can do it at the, how do I put this? It's not a switch back and forth between distributing and scoring. They're kind of weaving back and forth between those two things. So it's not like I'm in pass mode. It's not like I'm in shoot mode. You're just making the right play every single time. And that's a small group of players who, one of which that I've wanted for a minute, Kobe White, Kobe. If Scott Perry's listening, it's going to be a free agent. But anyways, DeAndre Hunter. I think the Kings, consolidated the contract, which we kind of talked about. You basically are getting Schroeder's contract off the books a year earlier, but you're bumping up the payroll for this year. I don't think I don't know, actually. I can't say that they're not high on DeAndre Hunter. He played one full game, and then the eye injury. So I can't say for sure. Asar Thompson is an incredible defensive player. The Thompson brothers are freaky athletic. Freaky. I was talking to Sean Salisbury about Amen Thompson, and it's like he just gets off the floor differently. Dennis isn't a pass first player. Would love to have White from the Bulls. He's in Charlotte now. He's in Charlotte. I think Charlotte's a good place for him. He's kind of the Malik Monk there, to be honest with you. That sixth man, really good place. So if Scott Perry can get him away, I think it's a great signing. But again, the Kings don't have a ton of maneuverability. All right, this is Bobby Marks. Let's get to him. Bobby Marks is the guy that made this graphic of the offseason for the Kings. This is his offseason outlook, and I want to get into what I think is the one unpopular key to this offseason.
We are going to talk a little bit about the Sacramento Kings. You can find the Kings offseason article along with the other 10 teams that have been eliminated. I believe Utah with for 4 or 5. You also have, and Scott Perry said it's not an excuse, but it's a fact and it's true. But this team has got to get younger. And when Anthony Slater of ESPN did that great piece on them, that was a sticking point. And here's why. He finished the season as the 4th oldest team in the NBA. Finishing in the lottery and having the 4th worst winning percentage in franchise history, and also having the 4th oldest team, that ain't a good mix, folks. That's not how you go about doing it. So how do you kind of go about improving that? You will certainly add a lottery pick, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But you have Levine, Sabonis, DeAndre Hunter, and Malik Monk on your roster next season. That will equate to 74% of your salary. You have a lot of work to do to balance your finances here. And here's why. It is great. You're going to get hopefully a top 4, top 5 pick. But the Hunter trade, when you swapped out Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder, when you factor in, and this is like put your hands over your like earmuffs. Was that old school? Including your 1st round pick, you're $20 million over the luxury tax, and you're over both aprons. $3.9 million over the second. So what's going to happen here is that there's a strong chance that DeMar DeRozan is going to be a roster casualty, either in a trade or he's going to be waived. And honestly, he was probably one of your more reliable players and probably one of your more efficient players here. He's got a $25.7 million contract. $10 million of it is protected. There's no trigger dates here. There's also a $3 million team option for Killian Hayes, which I would think would be declined too. So that is kind of your starting point here. Then you're going to have to look at your other, you try to move Monk.
All right, so let's talk about that for a second. So DeRozan, that might be a piece that the Kings part with. I don't love that because I think you could still get value for DeMar at next year's trade deadline on an expiring contract. I'm shocked that he was not swooped up. And DeMar said at exit interviews, and remember before that, he had said the season before was the hardest season he had ever had as a professional. When we were at media day, he had some more words about it. And then he said this year that this year was harder at the exit interviews than the previous year. So, okay, you're looking at DeMar possibly. Let's work under the assumption of what Bobby Marks just said. You're going to get rid of DeMar DeRozan, and you are going to get rid of Killian Hayes. Makes sense. Okay. If we, you guys are talking about that. Would you add Draymond, CP3, and Debo? Yes, undoubtedly. Yes, you would. Can we agree the Warriors will get a top 3 pick in this draft? Maybe. Look, the team with the number 1 odds has not had the number 1 pick since 2019, 2020. Take it for what it's worth. If you look at the lottery odds, it's just the percentages. Like we're not talking about these massive percentages. If we were talking about the top 4 teams having an 84% chance of landing the number 1 pick and having a 16% chance of falling to the 8th pick, if you're talking about that, then like saying the Warriors could get it is crazy. But the way the percentages are, it's like you can have the most odds for a number 1 pick, but you can also have close to a 20% odd, I believe, off the top of my head, of falling back to 8. It's nutty. So we'll see. What's up, Patrick? Thanks for being here, my man.
Acknowledge me.
By the way, Bobby Marks, you are correct. That was old school. Earmuffs.
Lou, you're my boy!
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So anyways, let's say that you get rid of DeMar DeRozan and Killian Hayes. Okay. You got your number 1 pick coming in. What's next? And we still haven't got to that the unpopular key move, but I found this very, very telling. So when we were at Scott Perry's press conference after the trade deadline, I asked Scott, and I knew that Scott could not talk about what happened before his time in Sacramento, but it doesn't change the fact that this season was the 3rd season in a row that the Kings have found an undrafted player, developed them, and ended up signing them to a full-time roster spot. And it's becoming more of a norm in the NBA. I'm not going to say it is a norm. It's becoming more of a norm under this CBA. In fact, as this CBA goes along, it's a must. The Kings have to be able to do that. Every other team in the league has to be able to do it. And the only thing more important than doing that is retaining those players. And Keon Ellis, now he's not Michael Jordan. He's not going to take this team to a championship, but I think he is a piece of the puzzle that's universal with 29 other teams. So if you have a guy like that, you've got to keep them. So I brought it up to Scott. Look, you guys in Stockton, and I know it's under one roof, but I asked Scott, here's my question to Scott, and his answer to my question went a different way than I expected. And I want to see if anybody else can pick out what I picked out from his answer. This was at the press conference after the trade deadline.
Right now.
Hey, good morning, Scott. This is the 3rd year in a row, first under your front office, that the Kings have found an undrafted player and elevated them to a full-time roster spot. with the strain of the CBA, with the strain of the salaries that are on the books, how important is it with the back end of finding those guys and developing them? And can you speak to the process that's gone on between you and Stockton and the front offices working together to come out with these positive players?
Obviously, I can't comment on what preceded me. I recognize that, and that's a tremendous job. But I think it's extremely important where we are today because, as you mentioned, and the best way to improve your team is usually through the draft. But when you draft young players, it takes time to develop them. Drafting them is one thing, developing them is another. And in Dylan's case, he goes through, and he's not one of the 60 guys picked. Kudos to our scouting staff. We quickly pivoted to him. I think we were the only team that offered him a two-way. Everybody else was talking about exhibit 10s for him. And so we saw something in him. Now, when he came in, he bought in. He's continued to work extremely hard. His time with Stockton was excellent. You know, kudos to Gabe Harris, who's the GM of our Stockton Kings, Will Scott, the head coach, Jason Maxiell, who's an assistant coach, a former big man that I drafted years ago in Detroit. So there's a mission to what we want our big men to look like. And so we want him to be tough, physical, and Jason has done a great job with him in terms of the mental aspect of that with him. There's been a lot of drilling going on with him to improve his free throw shooting. You know, he's got a long way to go as an offensive player, but that's okay. I worked with a guy for years in Detroit who never was considered, quote unquote, a great offensive player, but he was impactful offensively because you had to block him out, and that was Ben Wallace every time. But he was elite rebounder, led the league in rebounding, and one of the best shot blockers. And his toughness and his energy permeated the roster of the more talented guys. And so Dylan, I'm not sitting here saying that Dylan is Ben Wallace today, but he's doing some of the things that you like to see from a great defensive big. He's just starting, he's just scratching the surface, so now it's incumbent upon both us and him to keep getting better and not just feel good that he just signed his contract yesterday to become a full-time NBA player. Now what do you take it from here? How great do you want to become? And sometimes that's can be a great fortune for a team in the front office when you can get a guy who was undrafted. You know, like I said, I use the example because I lived with him so long with Ben Wallace, was an undrafted player. And we had a couple on that team that we ultimately won the championship with. So just because a guy's not drafted doesn't mean he can't make it, but you got to get the right person, mindset, and then you got to do your job as an organization and pouring into them and developing not only their skills, but again, their mindset and approach to becoming the best NBA player.
So that was Scott. And the quote that stuck out to me, I know, and some people are going to say Ben Wallace, right? Like, oh, he's comparing to Ben Wallace. That did not stick out to me. I get the comparison just from a physicality and a physical standpoint. You know, Dylan Cardwell, his most impressive trait that he has is the ability to not only explode, but when he explodes and jumps up, he stays vertical. That is so hard for big men to do. In fact, I was asking Jerry Reynolds, it's almost something that you can't teach. And Dylan has that. Now, he also, due to his age, he is, learning the league. He makes silly fouls. His offensive game's not there. He has a very good pedigree under Bruce Pearl at Auburn, I should say, while he was in college. So where the raw part of his skill set offensively is at, that's not a big deal. You're looking at the defensive side of things. But the quote that stuck out to me there was Scott Perry was this, There's a vision to what we want our big men to look like. I'll say it one more time. There's a vision to what we want our big men to look like. If you look at Dylan Cardwell, he is completely different than Domantas Sabonis, and you could say he's different than really anything the Kings have had on their roster in the last few years. Now, I'm not trying to build this guy up like he is Ben Wallace. I'm not trying to build him up like he's Mitchell Robinson. I'm not trying to compare. What's up, dude? You know, I thought about, I'm going to break my thought just for him. Thank you, horse. We might have a haunted horse roulette day. So we've got a whole library of haunted horse drops, and we'll have haunted horse back on the show at some point. We might just have a roulette day where we just, somebody says like 27, and I'll hit 27 in the library. And you cannot blame me for what he says. You got to blame him. So remember that screen name right there, Haunted Horse. So anyways, I'm not saying he's those guys, but what I am saying is a lot of these teams that are in the playoffs right now, they have that guy. Haunted Horse. Oh, God. They have that guy that is that anchor on the back end. Now, the ultimate example of that is Victor Wembanyama. Dylan Cardwell is no Victor Wembanyama by any means. But if you go back to Scott Perry's quote, we have a vision for what we want our big men to look like. If that's part of the vision, Domantas Sabonis is the opposite of that vision. And I mean that with no disrespect to Domantas Sabonis. Love Domas's game. Think he's a great player. He set a standard here in Sacramento, I thought, when the Kings were good, when the Kings were in the playoffs for the first time in 16 years, which we can now look back and say, you know what, that was a little bit of an outlier. It wasn't a trend because they didn't make it back. So you can call it an outlier of a season, but nonetheless, they make the playoffs. Domas's number right now, it's just too high. So if we're operating under the premise that DeMar's going to be gone, as Bobby Marks put out there, you're going to get rid of Killian Hayes. What's next? Maybe Malik Monk and you can keep Domas? I don't know where Domas stands with the Kings. He says he wants to be here. He's going to have a really nice offseason. But I don't think you're going to see him back in a Kings uniform. I think Domantas Sabonis, in my opinion, has played his last game as a King. A lot of people aren't going to like that, and I understand it. There's part of me that doesn't like saying it. But if you look at the numbers, you look at where the Kings are right now, look at that number, $225 million. That's second apron money. Zach LaVine is not going to get anywhere near what he can have with his player option on the open market. It's just not going to happen. So he's going to opt in. Now, with Domas, I think that if you do it the right way, there's a lot of value there. There's a ton of value there. I talked yesterday about the Toronto Raptors. There was a lot of talks that were rumored between, and here's the other reality. You guys are talking about Domas is like the Steve Kerr or the Steve Nash of centers. You know, Max Reynaud has shown the ability. He does not have Domas's skill set, but what he does have is the ability to see the basketball floor. So if you have that wrapped up under a second round pick contract, you've got Dylan Cardwell, which, by the way, looking at the numbers, Max Reynaud and Dylan Cardwell, any guesses what their salaries are next year? Domantas Sabonis who the Kings extended after the Beam team year, he's set to make next year 45.4, and then in 27-28, 48.6. Both Dylan Cardwell and Max Reynaud next year are going to be making 24 times less than Domantas Sabonis. Reynaud, 2.15. Cardwell, exact same number, 2.15. Doug Christie was retained to work with the young guys, largely what he did with the young guys. You've got two young centers right there that have completely different games. You have two young centers, which I will say too, played together more than Domas played with either of them. And I know Domas was injured, so the Kings have experimented with them. And Toronto being bounced from the playoffs and showing their front office, showing a different side of physicality. If I was going to write out or draft out a prototypical team that would be great for Domantas Sabonis, it's the Toronto Raptors. They were without Brandon Ingram, they were without Quickly, and they played physical. But the most important reason that I would do that is you have a big lead guard who is unselfish in Scotty Barnes. You pair Scotty Barnes with Domantas Sabonis, that is a great pairing. They work together very well. That ball will move, and Toronto has shooters. So can you re-engage in those talks if you're Scott Perry? Maybe. I certainly would be trying to. I think Golden State's an option as well. Here's the other reason that I think Domantas Sabonis could be the odd man out in Sacktown. I've said it 3 times. I've gone back to the quote. We have a vision for what a Sacramento Kings center should look like, or is going to look like, what we want it to look like. As Scott Perry said, Dylan Cardwell has more traits that are closer to some of the guys that we're talking about. And I'm talking on the defensive end, not the offensive end. But again, a lot of these guys are limited offensively. Rudy Gobert, limited to a degree. Wemby, not limited, but definitely not at full capacity yet. Wait till Wemby dials that in all the way. But Mitchell Robinson, limited. Very limited. Hack a Mitchell, which you might see tonight if he plays a lot of minutes. I can keep going down the list. I mean, if you want to go with Scott Perry talking about Ben Wallace, offense was not Ben Wallace's thing. Offensive rebounds were Ben Wallace's thing. Being that guy that you see there that we read about earlier, where the players were saying Wemby's the best defender because you dribble in, you're like, probably should dribble out, which doesn't happen in the NBA. Now, Dylan Cardwell won't be that guy, but his ability to meet people, that last block that he had of the season at home against Zion Williamson, are you freaking kidding me? And that's year 1. So if the Kings can develop him, it does 2 things. Here's the 2 things that it does. It drops your payroll if you're able to trade Domantas Sabonis. But you know what else it does? It gives you a little bit more leeway on the perimeter. And when I mean leeway on the perimeter, I'm talking about the perimeter defense. It's been awful for the Kings. Some of these players that, let's talk about Zach LaVine. We had the conversation earlier in the show. Somebody said Zach LaVine is an awful defender. If I had to, and I said, grade him out, yeah, he grades out to a bad defender. If I had to grade his effort on the defensive end this year, it would be much higher than I've seen in the past. But if you're going to have a Zach LaVine opted in who is playing for the Kings, that gives you a little bit more leeway to have a few more mistakes on the perimeter. If DeMar DeRozan is still in Sacramento, that gives you that little bit of more leeway. Because what's the knock on those players? It's the defense. And I think, and Jerry Reynolds has said Max Reynaud is not a great defender. I don't disagree with him. Now, Max Reynaud's willingness to defend, I think, is really strong, especially for a rookie. But I asked Jerry this yesterday when we were at lunch. I'm like, Jerry, is part of the reason Max has looked bad on defense at times because of the poor defense on the perimeter? And he said, absolutely. That 100% goes into it. So if we're just looking at the baseline of what the Kings might be playing with next season, and certainly you've got whoever the number one pick will be, and Scott Perry has said, and I don't mean number one overall, their first round pick, Scott Perry has already said they're looking to draft a starter. They want to draft a starter in this draft. So they're going to pick at the best available position. What happens if that's at the forward position or the center position? You now have a massive backlog. So to me, Domantas Sabonis is the odd man out. I don't think he'll be back in Sacramento. I just don't see any way if you look at all sides of it. And based off of what Dylan Cardwell has shown, he's going to look really good on some nights and he's going to look really bad on some nights. I thought the only game last season coming off of his ankle injury, which happened 2 nights before the Kings returned back to practice after the All-Star break, the only time he looked back to himself with that explosiveness was actually the New Orleans game. The rest of the time, I thought he didn't look right at all. So you're going to have times, he's not going to be that guy, but I think he's different. Let's just say this. He has the potential to be one of those anchor guys that when you look at very good basketball teams, they have. Look at Jalen Duren on Detroit. There's another good example of a guy that's not great offensively, but man, like when they're right defensively, they're right. So that's my take. If you agree with it, let me know. If you disagree with it, let me know as well. I just don't think he's back. I don't see it. Toronto might want Domas. We'll see. How does an aggressive rebounder play so soft on defense? Are you talking about Domas? I don't think Domas plays soft per se. I think he plays a little more reserved. 2 different stratospheres. Could you imagine listening to Rhino and Grant if the Kings get the number 1 overall pick? I don't know, man. We might just be like playing this all night.
Give me a hell yeah!
Sorry, blew your ears out there. Pulled a haunted horse on you. My bad. You do have playoff basketball tonight, by the way. Any way that Philly is going to pull the upset tonight? I could see it. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but I could see it. I could definitely see it. And if you're playing Prize Picks, remember Mike Brown keeps the starters on the floor like forever. So remember that too. So speaking of the draft, we hit this earlier in the show. That is what every team has to work with. The first round picks are in black because they are by percentages right now. The lottery is on Sunday. We'll cover it live as it happens here on the channel. If you want to be a part of that, we'll see where the Kings end up. I said it earlier. I think the Kings end up at 4. I do. It's what I feel. See if my feeling's right. Maybe it's hunger. Maybe I'm just thirsty. Maybe I need some more coffee. I think that's where the Kings will end up. All right, let's debut a new segment. I said we were going to talk a little bit about good old Ric Flair. Who doesn't love Ric Flair, right? Woo! Ric Flair's always trying to still be part of the attention. He's on Cameo and slurring and doesn't know what the message of the Cameo is supposed to be. He's probably still trying to wrestle somewhere. You know, I expect all that from Ric Flair. What I don't expect from Ric Flair is this. Ric Flair went on the X last night telling the Lakers that they need to trade Luka, and he's calling out Luka. He's telling Luka that he needs to take a shot in the hamstring and play. Here's my guess, Rick. Rick, you had money on Boston, you've got money on LA. That's what this feels like. And so for hot fakes, he doubles down. FYI, obviously, they're not going to trade Luka. He's their future. He's their franchise. But do the math. He averages 33 points a game. If he has 20, LeBron has 27. And the rest of the team, they will win. I would have said the same thing about Jason Tatum on the Celtics. Woo! Rick, my man, your WrestleMania 24 match, legendary. Loved that match with Shawn Michaels. You know which match I'm talking about? I'm sorry. I love you. I'm sorry. It was, I'm sorry. I love you. That's what he said. You know what else I love from Ric Flair? Who could forget this?
With a tear in my eye, this is the greatest moment in my life.
I mean, legendary moments from Ric Flair. But Rick, first off, a shot, hamstring, it might work a little bit. It does not usually work for hamstrings, my man. It's not that easy with a hamstring. Hamstrings are finicky. You know what probably would work, though, Rick, is something out of your 1970s fanny pack. I mean, what is with the wrestlers in fanny packs? What is so important that you have to carry it around your waist and protect it? Probably meds. That'd be one guess. Rick, if you want Luka to play, send him the fanny pack. I mean, what would be in Ric Flair's fanny pack? Woo! A woo? A woo would be in his fanny pack? Oh my gosh. So Ric Flair hopping in to the basketball news. Another hot fake. Skip Bayless. Oh man. Poor Skip. If you didn't know, he is returning to ESPN. Did he say it? Okay. That's what I always assumed it was, Mac. For sure. Like the steroid. I love wrestling. I'm talking about the 70s and 80s where that went on. But I mean, every wrestler had a fanny pack. We need a King's Court fanny pack. Not a bad idea, BJ. Not a bad idea. Skip Bayless is making the return that nobody asked for to ESPN for one show of First Take on Friday. Earlier today, in all caps, he puts out counting down to 10 a.m. Eastern this Friday on ESPN. I've been saving up 10 years of disagreements with him. I'm going to unleash like never before. I love him like a brother. I love him like a brother, but brothers argue. Hope he's ready because I sure am. 10 a.m. Eastern Friday. Skip, none of us are ready. You know why none of us are ready? Because none of us ever wanted to see it again. You can't get ready for something you don't want to see, Skip. Like, is anybody tuning in to see Skip Bayless? Have you seen the stuff he's been putting out as content? It's awful. I don't need to see Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless again. And I don't think I'm in the minority here. I think I am fully in the majority. Do me a favor. Give me more of the Mad Dog and less of Skip. That's it. That's one day. That's one more day. The Mad Dog could have been on ESPN. And Skip is already all capping it. And we're still, what are we? Less than 48 hours away from this thing? Epic fail. Why is he? Look, ESPN has to pull Skip Bayless out of the basement? His morning shows got that bad? I had no idea. I know this show sometimes is bad, but I'm not ESPN. What's Skip doing these days? I don't know. He's where he belongs, in the basement. Why are you dusting him off and giving him one more run? I don't get it. I bet you that's going to flop in the ratings. All right. Some of you have probably been waiting for this, because I know we have a lot of wrestling fans. Bayless said so many doubters, though he still prevails. Something is working out for him. It's literally what Haunted Horse just said. He trolls everyone. He trolls everyone. Only thing good about Skip is he's a Spurs fan. All right, well, you got it. So Lynn, are you a fan too then? I mean, I just know, is there any reason to put Skip Bayless back on ESPN for not an entire show, but for one segment? You know what he's going to do. He's going to say the most outrageous stuff that he doesn't believe in to elicit responses from somebody that you could say the water is blue and salt is white. And he would make some big objective rant, screaming and yelling and jumping up and down. It's awful. It's desperate, right? Okay, so he does have a show. Show is called The Arena, which Skip is on. My goodness. So yeah, Skip Bayless, if you want him, you can get him on Friday, back with Stephen A. Smith. All right, this one is got to be a little more responsible with this one.
What do you guys want to talk about?
We're going to talk about Ted Turner. Ted Turner, the creator of CNN, the creator of the Turner networks that just lost the NBA, that shouldn't have lost the NBA. The Turner networks have done two great things, and I really mean this, two great things. The first, the Monday Night Wars. Whether you like WCW or not, WWE needed that kick in the tail. So Ted Turner, awesome. Second, Inside the NBA. Those are two gems. But Ted Turner passed away today. And I mean, it does take me back a little bit to the Monday Night Wars. You remember when WWE used to do their Ted Turner skits and, back and forth, and Vince McMahon. By the way, is Vince running WWE again? Sure feels like it. Did anybody watch WrestleMania? Did you see how many commercials there were during WrestleMania? It was insane. They cut like half the talent, and they're asking some talent to take 50% discounts. Vince is involved somehow, some way. I know it. It's been intolerable. I mean, look at the booking of two wrestlers that I really enjoy. One is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But you know what?
What do you guys want to talk about?
I like Cody. I think Cody's good. I don't mind Cody. In fact, if you've watched The King's Court and you date all the way back to last year, I have been asking for a Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes feud. Because I'm a big Randy Orton fan. Cody's back and he's hot and he's the guy. He's QB1, right? And I'm thinking, heck yes. Orton, Cody, WrestleMania. Let's go. Cody gets busted open by Orton. Now you're waiting. You're like, is he going to break out the punt at Mania? And then wait, hold on. What do? You bring Pat McAfee into the feud? only to have Orton RKO McAfee at WrestleMania? What was the point of it? You ruined the feud. The one thing I was squarely looking forward to at WrestleMania was Orton and Rhodes. And then Pat McAfee gets involved. Do you know how ridiculous it is to see Pat McAfee rolling around with Randy Orton? Orton's taking advice from McAfee. The only thing that could have made sense about that, the only thing, is the connection between Orton's punt and McAfee being a punter. But to see Pat McAfee wearing my wife's sunglasses, trying to cut this heel promo and ruining, like literally ruining a WrestleMania main event angle, it blew my mind. So yeah, I think the old man on the left who's still on the right side of the dirt is back involved with WWE. TKO is running it into the ground. Like, bad. You know who called this? Adam. Adam called this. Our big time, too good for the King's Court, big deal wrestling correspondent now. Said the prices are too high. Go back and watch last year. The prices are too high. Got to do something different. You gotta lower the prices, which they did for WrestleMania because they couldn't sell tickets. So, anyways, back to Ted Turner. May he rest in peace. However, this was a pretty good hot fake. Christian Stegmeyer, assuming Ted Turner's funeral will start at 7:05 p.m. Anybody who has watched TBS and TNT for a while or for a number of years, maybe the shows still do that. They start 5 minutes after the hour. That was that was pretty good. That's a good hot fake. No, his funeral does not start at 7:05 p.m. Or at least we don't have a press release yet. But in all seriousness, Ted Turner, definitely one of those. I don't know if anybody ever watched Succession. I think Succession is one of the best shows. Like if I made a top 5 for HBO shows, Succession is on my list somewhere. Like that show was like made like in the model of Ted Turner's life. It's insane. So rest in peace, Ted Turner. WWE is not what it is today. Had he not started WCW, and WCW, that turned into quite the mess, but it did again kind of reignite wrestling that was getting a little bland. So that's where we stand. Man, we've got NBA basketball already going. How about that? What do you think the score is right now? Jane Fonda's favorite ex-husband. Were they married? I did not know that. So right now, you've got the 76ers up 5 on the Knicks. I thought this will be a game of runs. I think Mike Brown's adjustments to Embiid not being in the game, it's the most important thing. Are you going to stay big and make Philly deal with it? Or are you going to play down to maxi ball? We'll see. Best HBO series. If you're going to go, okay, are we including sports into that, Lynn? If you're including sports, I've got to go off the top of my head. I'm going Hard Knocks, number 1. I'm going number 2, Entourage. Number 3. Ooh. See, this is where, okay, yeah, this is where we're going to get crossways. I did not watch Game of Thrones. See, a lot of people would have Game of Thrones number 1. Nitro was fun, yes. Ballers is probably somewhere in my list. I don't know if it's number 3. I think my top 2, though, are Hard Knocks. Oh, excuse me. I just said it. Hard Knocks, Entourage, Succession, Ballers, and I'm open for debate at number 5. I never watched The Sopranos. Maybe I should catch up on it. All right, fair enough. Fair enough. So basketball ongoing, 3-point difference between the Knicks and the Sixers. Is Adam going to be on the show Friday to talk wrestling? I don't know, Icebox. Adam, if you can get a hold of him, let me know. My people have not been able to get a hold of him. Mac, what's up, dude? Sopranos and Band of Brothers, not even close. Isn't Band of Brothers, though, its own kind of thing? Like it just stands alone? Or am I wrong there? I know Adam Rank, who does an after hour with Jim Rome, did an HBO list not too long ago, and I think he excluded that. So don't forget Prize Picks tonight. Too late to get on the first one, but if you want to get in on the second one, I'm going Steph Castle, more than half of a made 3-pointer, so you just got to sink one. I am also going Julian Champagny, more than 1.5 made threes. And on the other side for the Timberwolves, I'm going Jalen McDaniels, more than 9.5 points. If you want to hit that, our prize picks for this game was Brunson, more than 1.5 threes, Maxey, more than 1.5 threes. Don't forget Napes coming up 7 o'clock. He'll be talking about a lot of this. He'll talk about the games, talk about whatever you want. It's open forum. That's what's fun about it. Make sure you get in there, ask him some good questions. Status on passport, unmoved at this point. Need to go back and finish the application process. The Last of Us was amazing. I did, an underrated one before we adjourn was I can't even remember. It's the church one that's about a mega church. Same actor that did Eastbound and Down. It's like the something Gemstones. That was a pretty good one. Isn't there an argument that a post 10 draft pick after the lotto is more beneficial to your team in most drafts? Let me think about that. Isn't there an argument that a post 10 draft after the lotto is more beneficial to your team in most drafts? You're talking about your outside. You're talking about the set pay structure. Here's what I would say about the NBA draft right now. Righteous Gemstones. There we go. Thanks for picking me up. This is the thing that I would say about the draft. This is the first draft in a few years outside of the one with Cooper Flag. Well, you know what? I can't include the one with Cooper Flag. I'm going to take that back. This is the first draft in 2 years, which does include Cooper Flag, ironically. I guess I do have to include it because of what happened behind it. Here's what I'm saying. This is the first draft in 3 years that you have a cluster of guys. In some order, you are likely going to have DeBonsa, you're going to have Boozer, you're going to have Acuff, you're going to have Caleb Williams, and then you're going to have, I'm leaving somebody out, Darren Peterson. Probably in some order, that's what your top 5 are. The last couple years in the draft, you had a guy that you thought was going to be number 1. Cooper Flag was really the only time where it's like that guy's number 1. It's in the last couple of years that slam dunk number 1. You don't even need to debate it. Put it on top of every single mock draft. But what I'm getting at is with this new CBA and with the importance of player development, the draft has become a lot more subjective rather than objective when it comes to the 30 teams and their opinions on guys. So, like I said, this draft, I think that top 5 in some order, and I know you've got an argument out a couple of outsiders. You got the kid from Houston, also the kid from Illinois, who made a really good run in the tournament. But that's your top 5. And after that, anything, I think teams in Actually, Portland's a great example of this. Hansen, who they took last year, that was a massive surprise. Everybody's like, what? They're taking him there? Teams are going to go with what they like and what they think they can develop. Like, if you're really good at developing a certain position. So I guess to generalize what I'm saying is there is going to be a lot more. I think it's going to be harder to nail mock drafts, and there's going to be a lot more parity when it comes to what the draft looks like behind these top 4 or 5 guys. So we'll see. Like the 2018 draft, we have Bridges, Brunson, and Robinson playing together. There you go. All right, we are going to adjourn. Don't forget, looking forward to having Grant on the channel tonight, 7 o'clock. Thanks for being here with me today on the Kings Court. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. The audio is going to start getting uploaded here in the next couple days, so check that out. If you missed the show, lives on YouTube, lives on X. You can catch anything that happened before us. Grant, 7 o'clock tonight. Icebox just sent Adam a text. Love it. All right, make it a great rest of your day. I'm going to go watch some basketball, hopefully hit some prize picks. Hope you have a great night as well. Grant, 7 p.m. here in just a couple hours. Good night.